I like this question from Pablo Garcia because I think it touches on a couple things that you talked about, specifically the idea of buy-in, shared ownership, and kind of um, making sure players aren't afraid to fail. And I think back to early in your tenure with the national team, playing Mexico, and some of the mistakes that happened in that game in a friendly. And you had asked these players to try and not be afraid to play it out of the back. Mistakes will happen. That's a part of this. And how do you get that buy-in, especially because criticism happens in the press at a professional level after those games? And as Pablo asks here, in today's right now world, many kids seem to be turned off by the first failure. How can a player exemplify mental toughness, and how do you encourage that ability to not be afraid to fail when there is some of that mentality creeping in?
That's a great question, and Pablo used to be part of U.S. Soccer, so it's good to hear from Pablo again. But um, you know, it's really important to build this resiliency amongst our kids, and not in the team, for example, the game you referenced, right? If we put them in position, we're asking them to do that. If we after the game would be really aggressive, saying, "Oh, you guys messed up. You didn't do a good," the whole thing would fall apart. You'd lose any type of psychological safety, right? You would know the players couldn't trust what we're saying. If we tell them to do that and then we criticize them for actually doing it and trying to do it, that's on us. But, with the outside world, what we try to do in that particular case is shield the guys from the outside world and keep them in our bubble and say, guys, it's okay. Trust us. You're doing okay. You're making progress. Every player wants to make progress, right? We're getting better. Despite what happened here, we're getting better. And what we had to do in that particular game, Paul, because it was so challenging to draw anything positive, because you lose the game 3-0, we had to show them data. And we had to show them data from the game in the Gold Cup to that game, because that was our last, those games were actually back to back. And we showed them how we improved in every metric, basically, that we were trying to improve in that game. So we reinforced it with data. And sometimes that's what you have to do, because they don't see that picture. They're hearing things, like you said, from the outside world. And we need to paint a different picture. So for kids, it's very similar. Is like, what is failure to a child, right? Is it not making a team? Is it making a mistake in a game? Is it losing a game? I think it's really understanding what failure is to that child, and then giving the appropriate messaging based on that, right? I mean, Michael Jordan didn't make his high school team, right? We all know these great stories, right? There's always stories like that we can reference and draw on to keep players motivated and continue to push.